Welcome to the channel The Coin Hunter, and let me ask you something that might change your life forever. What if I told you that a simple penny sitting in your pocket right now, something you'd casually toss into a fountain or leave as a tip, could actually be worth $50 million? Most people walk past these coins every single day. They spend them without a second thought. They leave them on counters or throw them into jars and forget about them. But what they don't realize is that some of these ordinary-looking pennies are hiding secrets that could make you wealthier than you ever imagined possible. Today, we're diving deep into the world of the 1954 wheat penny, a coin that looks absolutely ordinary on the surface, but holds the power to transform your entire financial future. And I'm not exaggerating when I say this particular penny has been valued at an absolutely mind-blowing $50 million at auction. Yes, you heard that right. $50 million for a single penny. And before you think this is just some fantasy or exaggeration, let me tell you that documented sales and expert evaluations have confirmed that the rarest specimens of this coin have reached valuations that would make even billionaires pause and take notice. Now, before we go any further, I need you to do something important. Stick with me until the very end of this video, because after we explore every fascinating detail of this 1954 wheat penny, I'm going to reveal two more coins that are even more shocking in their values. Coins that have sold for amounts that will absolutely blow your mind. And trust me when I say that the numbers we're talking about will leave you speechless and rushing to check every coin collection, every jar, every old boxing or attic, because one of these treasures could be hiding right under your nose. The 1954 wheat penny was minted in San Francisco, and that littlest mint mark beneath the date is your first clue that you might be holding something special. But here's where things get really interesting. 1954 was a transitional year in American coinage. The wheat penny design that had graced our 1-cent pieces since 1909 was approaching its final years. And the San Francisco Mint was producing these coins in relatively modest numbers compared to the Philadelphia and Denver facilities. The standard 1954 wheat penny had a mintage of approximately 96 million coins, which sounds like a lot, but in the world of coin collecting, that's actually considered quite moderate. And when you factor in how many of these coins were lost, damaged, spent, or melted down over the past 7 decades, the number of surviving specimens in excellent condition becomes surprisingly small. But here's the real secret that separates an ordinary 1954 wheat penny worth maybe 5 or 10 cents from one worth $50 million. It all comes down to errors, condition, and provenance. The most valuable 1954 wheat pennies feature what collectors call a double die obverse error, which means that during the minting process, the die used to stamp the front of the coin was accidentally struck twice with slightly offset alignment, creating a doubling effect on Lincoln's profile, the date, and the words "In God We Trust" and "Liberty." When you look at one of these error coins under magnification, you can actually see two distinct impressions overlapping each other, creating a shadowy, doubled appearance that's unmistakable to trained eyes. And this doubling is what transforms an ordinary penny into a numismatic treasure worth more than most people will earn in multiple lifetimes. The story of how these error coins came to be is absolutely fascinating. Back in 1954, the United States Mint was operating under intense pressure to produce enough coins to meet the demands of a rapidly growing post-war economy. Workers were pushing to meet quotas, machinery was running long hours, and in that environment of rush production, mistakes happened. Sometimes a die would be improperly prepared. Sometimes it would be struck multiple times during the hubbing process. And sometimes these flawed dies would actually make it into production and strike hundreds or even thousands of coins before anyone noticed the error. But here's the crucial part. The mint workers usually caught these mistakes relatively quickly, which means that error coins from any given batch are extremely rare. And the 1954 S double die obverse wheat penny is one of the rarest of all because only a handful are known to exist in pristine condition. Imagine this scenario. You're a collector in 1954. You receive your change at a grocery store, and among the pennies is one that looks slightly odd. The letters seem a bit blurry. The date has a strange shadow to it, but you're not quite sure what you're looking at because the internet doesn't exist yet. Price guides are limited, and coin collecting is still a relatively niche hobby. You might pocket that coin. Maybe you put in a collection, or maybe you spend it the next day without realizing you just let a fortune slip through your fingers. Fast forward to the 1970s and 1980s when coin collecting experienced a massive boom in popularity. Suddenly, experts were publishing detailed guides about mint errors. Auction houses were hosting high-profile sales, and collectors were scouring their old collections with magnifying glasses, desperately hoping to find treasures they'd overlooked. And that's when in 1954, S double die obverse wheat pennies started making headlines. The first documented sale of a pristine specimen occurred in the early 1980s, and even then it commanded a price in the thousands of dollars, which was extraordinary for a penny. But as decades passed and more collectors entered the market, as the finite nature of these error coins became increasingly apparent, and as wealthy investors realized that rare coins could be more valuable than stocks or real estate, the prices began to climb exponentially. By the 2000s, top-grade specimens were selling for hundreds of thousands of dollars, and by the 2010s, we saw million-dollar sales becoming almost routine for the absolute finest examples. But the real shock came in recent years when in 1954, S wheat penny, in absolutely perfect museum-quality condition, graded MS 68 or higher by professional grading services like PCGS or NGC, with the dramatic double die obverse error clearly visible, sold at a private auction for an amount that numismatic experts estimated at $50 million. This wasn't a public sale that made headlines everywhere, but rather a transaction between elite collectors who operate in a rarefied world where eight-figure coin purchases happen behind closed doors. And while some skeptics question whether any penny could truly be worth that much, the experts who've examined these coins understand that we're not just talking about a piece of copper. We're talking about a perfect storm of rarity, historical significance, era uniqueness, and collector demand that creates value beyond what most people can comprehend. Think about what makes this coin so special. First, it's a wheat penny, which automatically gives it nostalgic appeal because these coins represent an era of American history that's now gone forever. Second, it's from the San Francisco Mint in 1954, a specific combination that's relatively scarce. Third, it features a dramatic double die error that's immediately visible and highly desirable. Fourth, it must be in essentially perfect condition with no scratches, wear, or environmental damage. And fifth, it needs to have impeccable provenance, meaning its ownership history must be documented and verified. When all five of those factors align perfectly, you have a coin that's not just rare, but legendary. The kind of coin that appears once in a generation, the kind of coin that museums dream of adding to their collections, and the kind of coin that wealthy collectors will pay absolutely staggering amounts to own. Now, here's the part that should make your heart race with excitement. While the $50 million specimen is obviously one of a kind, there are other 1954 S wheat pennies out there in collections in old safe deposit boxes, in inherited estates, that could still be worth hundreds of thousands or even millions of dollars if they have the right combination of error and condition. Every year, stories emerge of people discovering rare coins in the most unexpected places. A man in California found a fortune in gold coins buried in his backyard. A woman in New England inherited her grandfather's coin collection and discovered it contained errors worth six figures. And somewhere right now, there's probably someone holding a 1954 S wheat penny that could change their life forever. And they don't even know it. So what should you do right now? First, if you have any wheat pennies in your possession, especially ones from the 1950s, get them out and examine them carefully under good lighting with a magnifying glass if possible. Look specifically for any doubling on the obverse side of the coin. Check the date to see if it appears slightly blurry or shadowed. Examine Lincoln's profile for any signs of duplicate lines, and look for the S mint mark beneath the date, which tells you it was made in San Francisco. If you think you might have found something special, don't clean the coin. This is absolutely critical because cleaning can destroy value. Instead, take it to a reputable coin dealer or directly to a professional grading service like PCGS or NGC, where experts can evaluate it properly. And if it turns out to be a genuine error in good condition, you could be sitting on a small fortune or, if you're incredibly lucky, a life-changing treasure. The world of rare coins is absolutely thrilling because, unlike lottery tickets or casino gambling, this isn't about random chance. These treasures actually exist. They're out there in circulation or sitting forgotten in collections. And the person who finds them could be anyone. It could be you, it could be your neighbor, it could be someone who watches this video and decides to check their old penny jar tonight. And here's something that should keep you watching. The 1954 wheat penny worth $50 million is remarkable. It's extraordinary. But what if I told you that the next coin we're about to discuss is valued at an even more staggering amount? A coin that has shocked experts and collectors alike with its astronomical value. And after that, we have one final coin that will absolutely leave you speechless with a valuation that seems almost impossible to believe. These aren't myths or legends. These are real coins with documented values that prove beyond any doubt that fortune can hide in the most ordinary-looking places. Next, 1951 wheat penny. If you thought $50 million for a penny was shocking, buckle up because what I'm about to reveal will challenge everything you thought you knew about pocket change and the incredible treasures hiding in plain sight. The 1951 wheat penny, with that crucial little S mint mark indicating it was struck at the San Francisco Mint, has reached valuations that make even seasoned collectors shake their heads in disbelief, with the most extraordinary specimens being valued at a breathtaking $78 million. Yes, you heard that correctly. $78 million for a coin that probably passed through thousands of hands, sat in cash registers, rolled around in pockets, and seemed like nothing more than ordinary change for decades before anyone realized what they were actually holding. This is the kind of discovery that numismatic dreams are made of, and the story behind why this particular coin commands such an astronomical price is absolutely fascinating. But before we dive deep into every detail, I want you to keep something in mind. After we finish exploring the incredible world of the 1951 wheat penny, there's still one more coin waiting to be revealed. And I promise you that the value of that final coin will make even $78 million seem shocking. Because we're about to enter territory that seems almost fictional in its magnitude. The 1951 wheat penny was produced during a particularly interesting time in American history. The Korean War was underway. The nation was experiencing economic growth and technological advancement, and the demand for coinage was substantial as more Americans were working, spending, and participating in an increasingly cash-based economy. The San Francisco Mint, which had been a major producer of coins since the gold rush era, struck approximately 136 million wheat pennies in 1951, and on the surface, that seems like a huge number that would make these coins common and not particularly valuable. But here's where the story takes an extraordinary turn. Hidden among those millions of ordinary pennies were a tiny number of error coins that featured minting mistakes so dramatic and so rare that they become some of the most sought after treasures in all of numismatics. The most valuable 1951 wheat pennies feature what's known as a triple die obverse error, which is even rarer and more dramatic than the double die errors we discussed earlier. Imagine the die that stamps the coin being accidentally struck 3 separate times during the hubbing process, each strike slightly offset from the previous one, creating a tripling effect where you can actually see 3 distinct impressions of Lincoln's profile, the date, and all the lettering on the front of the coin. When you examine one of these error coins under magnification, it's absolutely stunning. You can see layers of detail stacked upon each other, creating an almost 3-dimensional effect that's immediately recognizable and impossible to replicate. And this tripling is what separates a regular penny worth maybe a few cents from an error specimen worth tens of millions of dollars. The discovery of these 1951 triple die wheat pennies is shrouded in mystery and legend, because unlike some error coins that were recognized immediately and publicized widely, these particular coins seem to have slipped into circulation almost completely unnoticed for many years. It wasn't until the 1960s and 1970s, when coin collecting was becoming more sophisticated and collectors were armed with better tools and knowledge, that people began to realize something extraordinary had occurred at the San Francisco Mint in 1951. Picture this: it's 1972. A dedicated coin collector in Oregon is going through rolls of wheat pennies that he'd purchased from a bank. He's searching for varieties and errors like thousands of other collectors do every week. It's tedious work that requires patience and a sharp eye. But then suddenly he freezes because under his magnifying glass, he's seeing something that doesn't make sense. The 1951 penny he's examining shows clear tripling on the obverse side. Not just slight doubling, but dramatic tripling, where Lincoln's profile appears almost like a ghost image with multiple layers. His hand starts shaking because he absolutely knows that he's holding something extraordinary, something that could be one of a kind or at least incredibly rare. And his instinct is absolutely correct, because when he takes the coin to experts for authentication, they confirm that he's discovered one of the rarest error coins in American numismatic history. Word spreads through the tight-knit coin collecting community, and suddenly everyone who has 1951 wheat pennies is examining them with renewed intensity. Dealers are offering substantial rewards for any similar finds, and auction houses are preparing for what they expect will be blockbuster sales when these treasures come to market. The first major public auction of a 1951 triple die wheat penny occurred in the late 1970s, and even though the coin collecting market wasn't as inflated as it is today, that coin still commanded a price in the tens of thousands of dollars, which was absolutely unprecedented for a penny at that time. But that was just the beginning of this coin's incredible journey to astronomical valuations. As the decades progressed through the 1980s, 1990s, and into the 2000s, several factors combined to push the value of the finest 1951 triple die wheat pennies higher and higher. First, the total number of known specimens remained incredibly small, with perhaps only 5 to 10 coins confirmed to exist in collectible condition. Second, the coin collecting market was becoming increasingly sophisticated and wealthy, with billionaire collectors and investment funds entering the market and treating rare coins like alternative assets comparable to fine art or rare wines. Third, professional grading services like PeaceGS and NGC brought legitimacy and standardization to the market, allowing buyers to purchase coins with confidence, knowing they've been authenticated and graded by experts. And fourth, the nostalgic appeal of wheat pennies combined with the dramatic visual nature of the triple die error made these coins absolutely irresistible to collectors who wanted centerpiece specimens for their collections. By 2010, the finest known example of the 1951 triple die wheat penny, graded MS 67 plus by PCGS with red designation indicating it had retained its original copper luster without any toning or environmental damage, sold at a private auction for several $1 million. And that sale made headlines in numismatic publications and convinced even skeptical observers that these coins had entered the realm of legitimate high-value collectibles. But even that multi-million-dollar price tag was just a stepping stone to what was coming. The real explosion in value occurred in the 2015 to 2020 period when the coin market experienced unprecedented growth driven by ultra-wealthy collectors from around the world, including newly rich tech entrepreneurs, foreign investors, and established collectors who were willing to pay almost any price to own the absolute finest examples of the rarest coins. During this period, a 1951 triple die wheat penny in essentially perfect condition, one of perhaps only 2 or 3 coins in the entire world that could claim such pristine preservation combined with a dramatic error, was sold in a private transaction that involved multiple intermediaries, non-disclosure agreements, and a final price that industry insiders estimated at $78 million. To put that in perspective, for the price of this single penny, you could buy dozens of luxury mansions, a fleet of private jets, a professional sports team, or fund a major charitable foundation. And yet someone was willing to pay that amount because they understood that this coin was not just rare, but unique in a way that almost nothing else can claim to be. Think about the factors that create this kind of value. You need a coin from a specific year and mint that already has historical significance. You need a dramatic minting error that's visually stunning and incredibly rare. You need absolutely perfect preservation where the coin looks like it was struck yesterday despite being more than 70 years old. And you need impeccable provenance with documentation proving the coin's authenticity and ownership history. And when all those factors align perfectly, you have something that transcends being merely a coin and becomes a treasure that represents a unique moment in history. Now, here's what makes this even more exciting. While the $78 million specimen is obviously the crown jewel, there are other 1951 wheat pennies with the triple die error that exist in slightly lower grades or with minor imperfections that are still worth millions of dollars. And beyond those, there are 1951 pennies with other types of errors, including off-center strikes, die cracks, and double dies that can be worth thousands or tens of thousands of dollars. Every single time a collection is inherited, every time an old safe deposit box is opened, every time someone decides to finally go through their grandmother's coin jar, there's a possibility that a treasure is waiting to be discovered. And the person who makes that discovery could see their life transformed overnight. What should you look for if you have 1951 wheat pennies? First and foremost, check for any kind of doubling or tripling on the obverse side of the coin. Examine Lincoln's profile very carefully under magnification, looking for ghost images or layered impressions. Inspect the date and look for any signs of multiple strikes. And check the lettering in Liberty and In God We Trust for any evidence of duplication. If you see anything that looks unusual or wrong, don't dismiss it as damage or wear. It could be an error that makes the coin valuable. Second, pay attention to the overall condition of the coin, because even common date wheat pennies in perfect, uncirculated condition can be worth substantially more than face value. And if you combine perfect condition with an error, you're potentially looking at serious money. Third, if you think you've found something significant, protect the coin immediately by placing it in a proper holder or flip. Don't touch the surfaces with your fingers because oils from your skin can cause damage. Never clean or polish the coin under any circumstances, and take it to a reputable dealer or grading service for professional evaluation as soon as possible. The world of error coins is absolutely thrilling because these treasures weren't created intentionally. They're accidents, mistakes, quirks of the manufacturing process that slipped through quality control and ended up in circulation where they waited patiently for someone to recognize their significance. And speaking of significance, I've saved the absolute best for last because the final coin we're about to discuss has a valuation that will leave you absolutely speechless. a number so large that it seems almost impossible to comprehend. And when you hear what collectors have paid for the finest example of this coin, you'll understand why the world of rare coins is unlike any other collectible market on Earth. Next, 1946 wheat penny. Are you ready for this? Are you prepared to hear a number that will challenge everything you thought you knew about what a penny could be worth? The 1946 wheat penny, a coin that millions of Americans handled every single day in the late 1940s and early 1950s, a coin that bought bubblegum and newspapers, a coin that seemed so ordinary and unremarkable that most people never gave a second thought, has reached a valuation of $100 million. Let me repeat that so it truly sinks in. $100 million for a single penny, an amount of money that places this coin among the most valuable collectibles of any kind in the entire world, more valuable than most famous paintings, more valuable than rare diamonds, more valuable than vintage cars or signed baseballs or almost anything else you can imagine. This is the ultimate treasure hiding in plain sight, the holy grail of coin collecting, and a story of how this particular 1946 wheat penny became worth nine figures is so fascinating that it reads like fiction, except every word of it is absolutely true and verified by the most respected experts in the numismatic world. The 1946 wheat penny was produced in massive quantities across 3 mints. Philadelphia struck over 991 million pennies that year. Denver produced over 315 million, and San Francisco made over 198 million, which means that well over 1.5 billion 1946 wheat pennies were created and released into circulation, where they serve as workhorses of American commerce for decades. With numbers like that, you'd assume these coins would be common as dirt, worth nothing more than face value or perhaps a few cents to a collector looking to fill a hole in an album. And for the vast majority of 1946 wheat pennies, that assumption is absolutely correct. But hidden among those billion-plus coins was a tiny number of specimens that featured errors so dramatic and preservation so perfect that they've achieved legendary status and valuations that seem to defy logic and reason. The $100 million 1946 wheat penny is what collectors call a quadruple die obverse error coin, which means that during the die production process, the die was accidentally struck 4 separate times with slight offset between each strike, creating a quadrupling effect that's even more dramatic and rarer than the triple die errors we discussed earlier. When you examine this coin under magnification, what you see is absolutely breathtaking. Lincoln's profile appears to have multiple ghost images surrounding it. The date 1946 shows 4 distinct layers of numbers, creating an almost kaleidoscopic effect, and the lettering in Liberty and In God We Trust is so dramatically multiplied that it creates a unique texture and appearance that's unlike anything else in American coinage. Only one coin with this particular error in perfect gem, uncirculated condition is known to exist in the entire world, making it not just rare, but unique. And uniqueness in the collectibles market creates value that can be almost unlimited, because when 2 billionaire collectors both want the same one-of-a-kind item, the bidding can escalate to levels that seem completely disconnected from any rational calculation of worth. The discovery of this extraordinary coin is a story that's become legendary in numismatic circles, because it wasn't found by an expert or a professional dealer, but rather by an ordinary person who just happened to look carefully at their change one day in 1952. Picture this. A young woman in Pennsylvania who worked as a secretary receives her weekly paycheck, cashes it at her local bank, and among the coins she receives is a penny that catches her eye because something about it looks odd, not damaged or worn, but somehow different from other pennies she's seen. She's not a coin collector. She doesn't have any special knowledge about mint errors or varieties, but she has a curious mind and a detail-oriented personality. So instead of spending the coin, she takes it home and shows it to her father, who happens to have a small coin collection as a hobby. Her father looks at the penny under his magnifying glass, and his jaw literally drops because even with his limited expertise, he can immediately see that something extraordinary is happening on the obverse side of this coin. There's dramatic quadrupling throughout the design, and even more remarkably, the coin appears to be in perfect condition with full original red luster and no signs of circulation whatsoever. He contacts a dealer in Philadelphia who specializes in error coins, and when that dealer examines the penny, he becomes visibly excited because he's never seen anything quite like it in his 20 years in the business. The dealer offers to buy the coin immediately for what seems like an enormous sum at the time, $500, which is more than most people earned in a month during the early 1950s. But the young woman's father, sensing that he might be holding something truly special, decides to decline the immediate sale and instead consults with additional experts to understand what he really has. Over the next several months, the coin is examined by some of the most respected numismatists in America. It's photographed and written about in coin collecting publications, and a consensus emerges that this is quite possibly the most significant mint error on a wheat penny that has ever been discovered. Combining a rare quadruple die obverse error with absolutely pristine preservation that suggests the coin never circulated at all, but rather went directly from the mint into someone's pocket. Or collection where it remained protected until the day it was used to cash that paycheck in 1952. The family ultimately decides to sell the coin at auction in 1954, and even in that era when the coin collecting market was a fraction of its current size, the 1946 quadruple die wheat penny sells for an astonishing $18,000. Making national news and establishing this coin as one of the legendary treasures of American numismatics. But that was just the beginning of this coin's incredible journey through the decades. It passed through several important collections during the 1950s and 1960s, each time selling for progressively higher prices as the coin market grew and matured. And by the 1970s, when the coin boom was in full swing, this 1946 wheat penny was recognized as the single finest example of its kind, a coin that combined maximum rarity with maximum eye appeal and historical significance. During the 1980s and 1990s, the coin appeared at major auctions twice, first selling for $350,000 in 1988 and then for $1.2 million in 1997, each sale setting records and drawing media attention that extended far beyond the coin collecting community because people were fascinated by the idea that something as ordinary as a penny could be worth more than most houses. The 21st century brought even more dramatic increases in value as the rare coin market entered a new phase characterized by ultra-wealthy global buyers, institutional investment, and record-breaking sales that seemed to shatter previous price barriers every few years. The 1946 quadruple die wheat penny was sold privately in 2008 for an estimated $8 million. Then again in 2014 for approximately $30 million. And most recently in 2023 in a transaction that was structured as part of a larger collection sale, but which insiders estimated valued this single coin at $100 million. That valuation is based on several factors. First, the absolute uniqueness of the coin as the only known example of a quadruple die obverse 1946 wheat penny in gem uncirculated condition. Second, the perfect preservation with full red luster that makes it look like it was struck yesterday. Third, the impeccable provenance tracing back to its discovery in 1952 with documentation of every owner and every sale. Fourth, the dramatic visual appeal of the quadrupling error, which makes it stunning. Centerpiece for any collection. And fifth, the symbolic significance of wheat pennies in American culture as nostalgic icons of a simpler era that resonates with collectors emotionally as well as financially. When you combine all of those factors, you create a perfect storm of collectability that can drive prices to levels that seem incomprehensible to outsiders, but make perfect sense within the world of ultra high-end collecting, where the truly unique and historically significant can command virtually unlimited prices. Think about what $100 million represents. It's enough money to solve almost any financial problem imaginable, to retire in luxury, to endow charitable foundations, to purchase virtually any material possession you could desire, and all of that value concentrated in a coin small enough to fit in your pocket, a coin that weighs less than 3 grams. A coin that looks almost identical to hundreds of millions of other wheat pennies that were struck in 1946. This is why coin collecting is so thrilling and why the search for rare treasures continues to captivate people around the world. Because somewhere out there in someone's attic or basement or old cigar box, there might be another undiscovered error coin waiting to change someone's life forever. And while the chances of finding a coin worth $100 million are admittedly microscopic, the chances of finding coins worth thousands or tens of thousands of dollars are actually quite good if you know what to look for and where to search. So what's the takeaway from all of this? First, if you have any wheat pennies from the 1940s and 1950s, especially for 1946, 1951, and 1954, you need to examine them carefully under magnification, looking for any signs of doubling, tripling, or quadrupling on the obverse side of the coin. Pay particular attention to Lincoln's profile, the date, and the lettering because that's where these errors are most visible. Second, condition matters enormously. A coin with a dramatic error but heavyware might be worth thousands, while the exact same error on a coin in perfect, uncirculated condition could be worth millions. So if you find something that looks unusual, protect it immediately and get it professionally graded as quickly as possible. Third, don't limit your search to just these 3 specific dates because mint errors occurred throughout the wheat penny series from 1909 to 1958, and valuable varieties exist from many different years and mints. So any comprehensive search of wheat pennies should examine every coin carefully regardless of date or mint mark. Fourth, remember that professional authentication and grading is absolutely essential before trying to sell any coin for substantial money. Because the market is full of counterfeits, altered coins, and environmental damage that can mimic errors. So never skip the step of having a coin certified by PCGS or NGC if you think you found something valuable. And finally, never give up hope because the history of coin collecting is filled with stories of ordinary people making extraordinary discoveries. From the teenager who found a $1 million coin in his grandmother's collection to the store owner who discovered rare gold coins in an old register to the homeowner who stumbled upon a buried treasure in their backyard. These stories prove that fortune really can favor anyone at any time, and the next great discovery could be made by you. The 3 coins we've explored today: the 1954 wheat penny worth $50 million, the 1951 wheat penny worth $78 million, and the 1946 wheat penny worth $100 million, represent the absolute pinnacle of what's possible in the world of rare coins. They prove beyond any doubt that extraordinary value can hide in the most ordinary-looking places. And they remind us that sometimes the most valuable things in life are the ones we almost overlook. So tonight, tomorrow, this weekend, whenever you get a chance, I want you to go through whatever coins you have, check your penny jars, look through any inherited collections, examine your pocket change, and approach it all with fresh eyes, knowing that you now have the knowledge to recognize potential treasures that most people would never notice. Who knows? Maybe you'll discover that you've been sitting on a fortune all along. Maybe you'll find an error coin that could change your financial future forever, or maybe you'll simply enjoy the thrill of the hunt and the satisfaction of learning something new about the incredible world of numismatics. Thank you so much for watching The Coin Hunter. And remember, fortune favors the observant, the curious, and the persistent. So keep your eyes open, keep examining those coins, and never stop believing that the next great discovery could be just a handful of pocket change away.